Are we good? Okay, we are back on. Thank you very much, everyone in the booth. So the proposed budget, this is globally all the revenues for the town and the Board of Education. You will note that property taxes make up 55% of the total revenue for the town and Board of Education collectively. Education revenue, that is largely our grant that we receive from the state, our education cost-sharing grant. That's about $15 million that the town receives. And that makes up, there's also other educational revenues like tuition and other grant that comes into the general fund specifically, and that makes up 28% of the revenue. The amount that we're recognizing for the pilot for the Lake Road Generating Agreement is 5% of the revenue. Collectively, the town collects licenses and permits and charges for services, and that collectively, along with investment income, comes up to 6% of the revenue. State grants is another smaller amount of state grants, so this is largely what we receive for offsetting for veterans benefits, as well as municipal grant and aid and some of those other smaller grants that we receive. That's about 3%. And lastly, fund balance. This is the amount of revenue that fund balance is providing to the budget to make that capital contribution to offset those capital investment in the roadways that was proposed. Next slide. The next one is our overall expenditures. Go back one. The overall expenditures, so this is just globally the entire expenditures that before you, the full $64 million. So as you can see, the largest chunk of that is our education, and that is fairly typical for pretty much all towns. The town operations is 20.6%, and we're going to break that town operations down a little bit more as we go to the next slide. She kind of gave you a sneak preview of that. Debt service is 7.02% of our overall budget. There's an amount that the general fund contributes to the solid waste disposal fund, and that is to operate our transfer station. That capital improvement, additional investment in capital improvement for the road is just a little over 2%, and then there's a small amount that is set aside each year into the student transportation fund to be able to replace buses as they age out of use. Next slide. Next slide is town operations. So that's that 20% piece that I'm now breaking down further for you to give you an idea of how that breaks down. Our largest component of that is public works. And so this is the maintenance of all of our fleets, as well as all of our paving and our snow work, as well as any of our drainage projects, all of those that, in general maintenance, all occurs out of that public works. The green pie piece is recreational and culture, and that is our recreation department, our parks department, as well as our library. That's 11%. The yellow piece is public health, safety, and community development. That's 16%. That is our fire marshal and building official office, as well as our law enforcement division and our community development office. The general government piece, I'm going to skip over to the blue piece. The general government piece is 16%. That I would say is collectively the rest of our town office departments that you typically will, that's all the town hall departments. So the revenue office, assessor's office, planning department, town clerk's office, finance department, engineering is in public works, as well as my office, the town manager's office. Those are all in general government. Collectively, all of our employees, we have employee benefits, and then our general property and liability insurance, that makes up that darker green piece at 18%. The town has historically and continues to maintain contributions into what is called special reserves, and those are for long-term liability commitments, and that's 3%. And then, again, those capital improvements, and those have been earmarked for roads and for the continuation of a drainage study, and that's at 3%. So how do we, on the town side, develop our budget? The next slide is the council goals. So when we're developing the budget, I meet with all of the town departments to review their individual departments, but we also look at what is the council goals and what has been set as goals by the community over periods of time. And so these were the council goals that we wanted to bring and evaluate and bring forward within my initial budget that I presented to the town council. So one of their, these are all 5 of their collective goals, which was continued support in public safety, supporting the constabulary. They also are looking for me to create a long and short-term goal for the constabularies and be able to present that to them, as well as supporting or evaluating our public safety commission. Another goal is to promote infrastructure projects, and that included roads as well as buildings, not just town buildings. This says town buildings, but it's also town and Board of Education buildings, making sure we're prioritizing Board of Education building infrastructure requirements. They also had indicated improving communication to the public, developing a long-term vision for the community, for the town, and then continued efforts to expand economic development opportunities throughout the town. So in the next slide, I'm going to go through with you what proposals I had put into the budget to bring forward to the town council. And the first change was really around, is just reflecting the contractual salary increases. That overall increase was about $135,000. We also had minimum wage impacts. There's 2 of our departments that are definitively impacted by minimum wage, our library department and our recreation department. We have a number of seasonal employees that are hired through the recreation department that automatically would have to receive that increase, largely around our Camp Wallaby. The next one, which was to move into or start to build on that goal for building infrastructure. I have proposed before you the addition of 1 building maintainer. The town has 5 large buildings that we maintain. We have 1 building maintainer for all 5 of those buildings. And that 1 building maintainer does a lot of not just like changing filters, but that position has also recarpeted rooms and refurbished whole entire rooms in a number of our spaces. It's very challenging to meet all of the infrastructure and maintenance needs of 5 large buildings with only 1 building maintainer. So this budget proposes adding 1 additional building maintainer. The next one, law enforcement. So the town council has, for several iterations of their goals, have indicated supporting the continued growth of the law enforcement division. So this budget proposes the addition of 2 constabularies. 2 constables. The next segment is really the largest proposal increase, and this is the pavement management. So the initial town manager's proposal had the pavement management proposal to the town to increase it to $1.6 million. Currently, we were investing just over $800,000 in our roadways. The town council received, I had proposed $1.6 million. The council had subsequently received a presentation by our highway director outlining, and I have some of that in here, we'll get to it, on pavement management and what the investment would do for the community to further increase that and what happens if we stay where we're at. And so that's the largest component here. We're also looking to replace a 2007 trailer that is long met its useful life, but also we were looking to purchase a more flexible trailer that would be able to give them the flexibility to move more equipment more efficiently by purchasing that trailer. And as the next one is, as everyone here has dealt with the changes at the pump, so has the town. So the diesel and the gasoline, we have an increase. We have locked in for our diesel and our gasoline and our heating oil, so we at least know the exact price of what it's going to be. So we've been able to calculate that, so we have now at least contained that cost for the upcoming year. Human services subsidies, there's a number of those, and if anybody has the detailed budget before you, you can go to that department. It's a number of outside agencies that submit requests annually to the town for funding, and it runs everywhere from Day Kimball Hospital, United Services, KB Ambulance, Last Green Valley, I think, is on there. So there's a whole bunch of them on there. And most NDDH, our Department of Public Health, all of those provide various services to the town of Killingly. Many of them are per capita calculation, which means we are charged based on our population, and those have a number of those agencies have had increased requests for the current year because of their own operational increases. Fringe benefits are increases. I identified the increase in the fringe benefits that are related specifically to the 3 additional positions that we have proposed, and then just in general, we've had an increase to our medical and our pension. Our property, liability, and workers' comp insurance, largely our workers' comp insurance, we're having an increase in the upcoming year. And then we did have to increase our reserve for revaluation by $20,000. We're getting ready to go into a revaluation year. Next year is our revaluation. We need to, that would cover those remaining costs that we'll have for that, that contract. Next page. So what did the town council do to the budget? So the town council took the town manager's budget, took the information and the feedback received during the public hearing, and deliberated on any changes to the proposed budgets from the town council, from the town manager, as well as the Board of Education. Based on those deliberations, they have increased the amount to go towards roads, and by doing so, they also activated more use of fund balance. They did cut the request from the Board of Education, and they're proposing a level flat mill rate, so 25.14. Next slide. So the next slide really speaks to the pavement management. So this was the slide that was reviewed by our highway director with the town council. And when you're looking at it, there's the bottom red line. The bottom red line represents how much we're currently investing in our roadways. Your roads are your largest public asset. And currently our roads, as they stand right now, if you were looking at the left-hand side, you see a pavement condition index. Think of that as like a grade. So our current roadway grade is 63%. And the brown represents area of roadways needing reconstruction. So your roadway would need reconstruction or serious rehabilitation during that phase. Once we complete this current fiscal year with the $800,000 that we're going to be investing, as well as we had some remaining, so the town receives town aid road grant funds from the state. We get about $250,000-ish each year. That money we accumulated over several years for some of the larger section of roadway that needed to be done. We'll be working on that one. That'll be Cranberry Bog. We'll be redoing Cranberry Bog this construction cycle. And we also were able to, in working with the water company is going to be doing several different roads where they're going to be replacing their water mains. We're able to leverage that pavement money from the water company. So we're actually investing this year about $1.4 million. So we're going to move the dial from about a grade of about 63 to 66, right? That's where we're going to land this year. But if we continue to only move forward with funding at $800,000, you're going to see we're going to begin to completely just slope back down again, right? The whole network is just going to continue to degrade. So the council evaluated, and even at my proposal at $1.6 million, it held it steady at 66, at that 66 grade. That's the yellow line, is the town manager's original proposal. The town council had requested that I evaluate and look at what it would be for us to invest $2 million or $2.5 million. So you'll see the $2 million is the blue line, and that holds steady for the current year, but if we continue to make that investment, you can see where our road network begins to improve, and after these 5 years, we could move it up to about a grading of about 72. At 2.5, we can see an immediate impact in the current year at 2.5. So if we were to invest $2.5 million next year in roadways, you can see that immediate increase in our rating from a 66 to a 68. And then each year, we continue to see that improvement. And that would be, again, assuming that we're going to continue to make that level of investment. So the council requested to then look at what does that mean for use of fund balance, because the town has always been diligent with watching to see how much we have as available fund balance, because the town has, we have capital projects that we have to go out for, to borrow money on, and that means we have to go for a credit rating. So as all of us, as individuals, when we go to take a loan out, they pull your credit, and they want to know what your credit worthiness is. So we want to make sure that we have sufficient funds remaining in our fund balance in order to be able to sustain the use of fund balance for capital investment. And I will say, for having been through a number of those credit rating agency calls, they prefer the towns look at capital investment as opposed to use their fund balance for operational costs, because eventually you cause that cliff at the end where you no longer have fund balance to use, but you've been subsidizing operational costs for a long period of time. They prefer to see the use of capital projects. So we did a fund balance evaluation, so if you can go to the next slide. So the fund balance evaluation, reflecting here the last two audited years of fund balance. You can see that at the end of fiscal year 2021, we had a fund balance percentage of 21.5. So our lower end goal of fund balance would be to not dip below 15%. And even at 15%, our credit rating would still hold. It's when we start dipping well below that 15%. So the town truly had room within their fund balance in order to be able to offset a capital investment. Estimated, of course, we haven't completed the current fiscal year. Our year doesn't end until June 30th of 2022. So based on the information that we've received in what we've provided in the budget book, we are anticipating an increase in that remaining fund balance, so that percentage will come up to 24%. If we're layer in what has been proposed before you of the use of $2 million, that brings that percentage down to 20.2. So we do look forward, and I will say when the town council evaluated this, I provided them a 4-year lookout period for at what point is it unsustainable, and they had several years before you had to be concerned with dialing back the program or modifying significantly that level of investment. So that's the fund balance analysis that we provided to the council for the budget that's before you. And I think that completes my slide deck. I don't know if the superintendent is ready.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Angeli, Superintendent for the Killingly Public Schools, and I'm here representing the Killingly Board of Education, many of whom are sitting up on the stage, including our chairman, Mr. Norm Farron. So I start the presentation with a little bit of a discussion around how the Board of Education develops its budget. For us, the budget development process begins very early on in the school year for the next school year. So we start building the 22-23 school year budget in October and November. We have preliminary discussions. We ready the forms that are disseminated out to the various administrators at the building and central office level, and we discuss the needs of the district and building a budget that will both deliver help us deliver an excellent educational program for the students, but also remain fiscally responsible to the community. In November, December, the building level administrators, meaning the principals, along with central office administrators, are building their budget. So the KCS principal is working with her staff, et cetera. And then our central office administrators, PPS director, curriculum, so that would be our assistant superintendent, et cetera, work with their staff to build budgets. In December, the manager of business affairs and I meet with each of these administrators to discuss the requests that they are moving forward for the next school year. In January, at the end of January, I present to the Board of Education a preliminary budget. That budget sometimes amounts to a little bit of a wish list, and that initial percent on that budget is generally high, 6, 7, 8% range, knowing that some of the things then are going to be identified for inclusion and other things will not be identified for inclusion. The Board of Education then usually meets as a whole, and they do that every other Wednesday through the month of February into the beginning of March, where at the first meeting in March, I present the superintendent's budget to them. The Board of Ed then acts on that and approve a budget, and so then we end up with the Board of Education's approved budget. That is transmitted to Town Hall for the Town Council's consideration, and that is governed by the town charter. So by March 15th, we have to transmit the budget over to the town. And then we begin a series of these types of presentations, and the one that's highlighted on that slide is today. So we are now at the stage where we're at the town meeting, and you are getting presentations on the budget so far in development, and then next week on May 10th, there will be the budget vote for the town. Next slide, please. So when we are working on the development of the Board of Education budget, there are some documents that guide our decision-making. So the Board of Education has a set of 4 different goals, and some of those goals then have subsets within the goals. So the Board of Education, of course, is in the business of educating children, so the very first goal does talk about academic achievement. So we're trying to build a budget that will then create our ability for a full implementation of a proficiency-based learning system, ensuring equitable achievement opportunities for all students. And then we also want to bring to life the KPS portrait of the graduate with the students, staff, families, and the community to ensure all students are prepared for life's success. Goal number 2 is in talent and development, and that's basically recruit and retain the best possible staff that we can so that we can provide the best possible educational opportunities for our students. Next slide. The third goal is around organizational systems, so we want to make sure that we are updating our facilities so that they are safe, healthy, adaptable learning environments, so that we can advance student learning, certainly around 20th century learning expectations and around student-centered teaching. And then we also want to ensure that pre-K students have access to a progressive digital learning environment where the students will develop skills so that they will proficient and be able to move forward successfully That certainly did come in handy during the pandemic when we had to shift to remote learning and hybrid learning with our students. School culture and climate, again, the Killingly Public Schools will provide a safe, healthy, supportive environment for learning where students build resilience through integration of social, emotional, and academic skills. And then we will cultivate a positive student, family, community partnerships that support learning, build pride and recognition in the value for education. Next slide is our profile of a graduate. So that was the document that was alluded to earlier, and there are 5 areas in the profile of the graduate: pursuer of knowledge, effective communicator, technology fluency, personally responsible, and critical thinking. These are often considered the 21st century skills or soft skills that students need. So the academics, the hard skills, these are the soft skills. But I think we'll all agree that these are the skills that students need to allow them to use their academic knowledge and skills so that they can be successful as they mature and pass through the school system and then into adult success. Next slide. This slide shows a little bit of the budget history dating back to fiscal year 15-16. So it shows my and previous superintendents' proposed budgets to the Board of Ed, how the Board of Ed acted on those in terms of the percents that the board had approved. And then the final budget says TBD because that won't happen until next week, May 10th. Hopefully we'll have budget pass on the first go-around. But you'll see that I came in at 1.94%, which it was fiscally conservative compared to some of the previous year's requests. You'll see that the board reduced that down to 1.37%, again, fiscally conservative based upon previous years. And so we'll wait to see where the final budget lands out. Next slide, please. So this next slide shows my budget recommendation, the board's adopted budget, and then the town council's action on the budget. So again, I had asked for a 1.94%. The board reduced that to 1.37%. And as Ms. Colorio reported during her presentation, the town council acted on the Board of Education, reduced the request to $1, which is in effect a 0% increase. This slide does not reflect the change that's being recommended by the town council. Should that become the number that goes to referendum, and if that is the number that is approved through that budget referendum, then there will be some changes that we need to make, and I will talk about that a little bit in an upcoming slide. But I wanted folks to understand that for a school system, most of our money is wrapped up in people, right? Our staff through salaries, hourly rates, and benefits, and then also what we pay other people to provide services either directly for our students or to work with our staff, right? And so line item 100 in the budget, that is the salary line. So at 1.37% overall for the budget, that partly or mostly was coming out of salary increases. So those are either contractual obligations that the board has with our unionized employees, or they are board-approved salary and hourly adjustments for our non-unionized staff. The benefits, again, are similar. Those are health, dental, et cetera, type insurance and benefits. Purchase services, so that spans 3 different line codes in the budget, 300, 400, and 500. Purchase services could be tuitions that we are paying to other organizations when we may have to send a student out of our district to receive their educational program. It could also be services that we hire for people to come into the district and work with our students or staff. It's also contractual obligations that we have for, let's say, waste removal or legal expenses, things like that, any type of service. The supply line is instructional supplies or non-instructional supplies. So instructional supplies could be pencils, paper, specimens for a science class. It could be art supplies for our art, et cetera. Non-instructional supplies can be any type of supply that is not used for the direct instruction of children. So it could be supplies for transportation, supplies, maintenance supplies, cleaning supplies, things like that. Property is equipment or vehicles that the district is purchasing, and again, that could be non-instructional equipment if we're buying chainsaws, et cetera, for, let's say, operations and maintenance. But it could also be instructional equipment that we are purchasing, so that could be microscopes and things like that, and other types of educational equipment. Under other, that is a line item that is kind of a catch-all for things that don't neatly fit into other areas of the budget. Examples of that would be in some of our contracts. We have incentivized our staff to go to continue their education, and so we offer tuition reimbursements, et cetera, for various staff. So that's just one example. And then the decision packages are generally staff that we might be adding to the district if there's going to be a big purchase. Those are kind of set-aside items that the board considers on an individual basis. So when you look at this slide, you'll see that the increase is 1.37. Salaries and bennies alone are 1.15% increase. And then when we pay other people to work with our students or provide services to district staff, that's another 0.65. We did make reductions to supplies and the property line. And so those areas are reduced. And then the other 2 areas, other and decision package, are a minor increase of 0.03%. And that's how we land at the 1.37% increase that the Board of Ed had approved. Next slide, please. So for the decision package, we had several. One decision package was approved by the Board of Ed. We have a increasing number of our girl students here at the high school that are participating in golf. Currently, they have to participate as members of the boys team, but we're at the point right now where the number of girls that are playing would sustain their own team. And so the Board of Ed agreed with the proposal to hire a girls coach for the golf program for next school year. That's, again, a modest increase of $4,412 or 0.01%. Next slide, please. So this next slide is just a reminder of where we're at right now. So the Board of Ed had approved $615,100 $99 increase or 1.37%. And the town council is recommending reduction of that to a $1 increase or 0%. Next slide. So some of the things that we're looking at, should we end up with a 0% increase, the town and the Board of Ed partner in several different purchasing initiatives, fuel, health benefits, some other insurances, like through KERMA. So we have several partnerships. One of them is in health benefits. And so there have been discussions about, are there ways that we might be able to realize savings in health benefits. We are in discussion about supporting the Board of Education's request through our non-lapsing account. And so for those of you that may not know what the non-lapsing account is, when the Board of Ed ends the year with a surplus or unexpended funds, those funds get returned to the town. There's a law in Connecticut that allows towns, municipalities, to create a fund called a non-lapsing account that the Board of Education could ask the fiscal agent of that municipality, so in this town, that's the town council, to deposit some of that unexpended money into the non-lapsing account for future use. So Killingly has a non-lapsing account. It's been established for several years now, and the town council has been acting favorably to Board of Education requests around making deposits into that account, and has actually increased a cap. The law doesn't have a cap on that account, but municipalities sometimes do place a cap on that account, and Killingly has done that, but the town council has increased the cap on a couple of different occasions, understanding that it's a good way to provide money to the educational program. The town did experience many years ago, ending the year in a deficit around special education, and then there had to be a request for an additional outlay of money, and that is a difficult process for taxpayers, right? Because they thought you were done paying taxes, and now there's a request for additional money, and sometimes that could be an additional request for a tax if general fund perhaps may not be able to handle that. And so that is one of the reasons why the town council created the non-lapsing account, to aid the Board of Education in ensuring that unexpected expenditures the board would be able to meet them without asking for additional money. But it is a possibility in the current fiscal environment, largely due to the pandemic, that the non-lapsing account might be a good way to help the board meet its obligation were the board to end up with a 0% increase. And then, if need be, we would have to identify reductions to the Board of Education's budget. And as I just showed you, most of the money is tied up in people. And so we're not sure if that would end up in a reduction of staff, which could then end up in impacting educational programs for the students. But we will explore all options. It has been discussed by me, by board members, by town councilors, that the Board of Education over the last few years, in particular the pandemic years, have been ending the year with large surpluses, right? And they have been mostly, the surplus have mostly been around the Board of Ed's inability to spend its money due to the pandemic. So early in the pandemic, when schools across the state were closed, even though we were still paying our staff and providing an educational program remotely, we were not running things like sports, and we were not sending people out for professional development, nor were we bringing people into the district to work with our students and staff. And so even that first year of the pandemic, the Board of Ed returned a larger amount of money than you would normally expect. And then last year, which was really the first full year of the pandemic, which I guess last year is really this year. I'm thinking we're at the end of the year, but I'm talking about the current, no, last year I'm talking about. I get confused sometimes because the way the pandemic started during one year, and then, so we're actually in year 2.5 of the pandemic. Can you believe that? But last year was the first full year, and our district was remote on and off during that year. It was in hybrid instruction on and off during that year. We were not running all of our sports programs, and when we were, the sports programs were extremely limited. So again, in the end, we could not spend all the money that we had asked for, and a large money was returned to the town. This year, the second full year of the pandemic, although I heard Dr. Fauci on the radio declare that we're out of the pandemic, but we're into some other phase of coronavirus. This year was supposed to be the normal year, and it has been anything but, as you all know. The biggest challenge for the Board of Ed this year has been to maintain a full staff at any given point during the year. We have had 20 or more vacancies. So through people coming in and out of the district, and whether or not they enrolled in our benefits program, we are seeing that we will have a large surplus in salaries and in benefits this year, and then a few other areas of the budget, but it's primarily tied up in salaries and benefits. So again, at the end of this year, we're going to return, again, a large amount of money to the town. So I understand what the town council is doing. They're saying, hey, Board of Ed, Mr. Superintendent, the school system has been returning these large surpluses, so we're only going to give you $1 so that we ensure that we will maintain a minimum budget requirement, but we think you can get it done with $1 because you've been returning a lot of money. And so the risk is, if we have a normal year next year and we fill all our positions and we are able to maintain a staff throughout the year to capacity, then we're going to need that money. And we won't have it if the budget is at $1. On the reverse, if we have the same kind of year that we have this year, and we get only $1 increase, we're going to return money to the town next year, even though we had a 0% increase. And so that is where we're at. And so one possible solution is, if we end up with a 0, but the Board of Ed decides to put a safety net out there by authorizing the use of non-lapsing funds, we could be okay. So I just want that to be clear. I'm not going to stand up here and rail against the town council for only recommending $1, because they could be right. It really just depends on how the year plays out next year. And then, so if we end up with $1 and a 0% increase, I won't say that we can't make it work, because that would be disingenuous of me. We might be able to make it work, is what I'm saying. All right, next slide. So Mary Calorio mentioned that the Board of Ed is a revenue source for the town. These are the revenues that we bring in and that then go to the town. You'll see in the fourth column over, there's a column that's entitled Budget to Projection. And that shows how close we were to projecting correctly about what types of revenues we might be able to bring in. Some of them we were extremely close, and the good news is on regular ed tuition, we were actually off by $116,296 to the good. So when you look at the bottom of that column, the Board of Ed is generating revenues of $139,813 higher than what we originally expected. And so, you know, one way of being able to do that is maintaining a strong and healthy educational system. Next slide, please. The Board of Ed also benefits from various state and federal grants, and so this slide gives you a little bit of history of what some of those grants, well, of pretty much what all of those grants are, but every year there are some grants that expire, and then there are new grants that may come in. In particular, during the pandemic, there were various ESSER grants that came out. So even early on in the pandemic, there were the Corona relief funds, and then there were 3 ESSER grants that came out after that. The last one being the ARP ESSER, which is the largest of the ESSER grants, and that is a grant that goes out to the end of the 23-24 school year. You will see in the column for 22-23 that we left that column blank. We think that those are relatively assured to be at least flat funded, but there was a lot of talk at the state level this year about how education was going to be funded. I believe that the legislature is meeting this very evening to have a budget discussion and hopefully a vote. So if the state was going to change how it funded education, we didn't know how to predict that. So that's why that's empty. But if the state decides not to revamp how it's going to fund education, then we expect a lot of these grants will be flat funded. Next slide. So the next slide is some student enrollment history. There's been concern because student enrollment around the state has been declining, and that certainly has been one aspect that has been occurring here in Killingly. Last year, we did see a dip in, so that would be the October 1st, 2020 number, so that was the 2020-21 school year. That dip was in large part created by the pandemic. We had families decide not to send their, mostly their youngest children to school, so pre-K and K is where we saw the biggest enrollment impact as parents were unsure of the impact of COVID-19 on their youngest children. But we also saw some loss of students across the district For this school year, like we were supposed to come back normal, we did see a rebound in enrollment for the October 2021 number. So between the 2 years, it went from 2,388 up to 2,423. When I checked prior to coming over here for this meeting, we have had increases throughout the school year, so we're actually up to 2,457 students as of today. So we've seen a little bit of a rebound in our enrollment. Next slide. And then this last slide gives you an idea of class size averages at our elementary schools. At the middle school and the high school, where the kids are traveling to different classes and they may not be with the same cohort of kids all day long, it's a little more difficult to get you that average class size because it just changes. But at the elementary school, give you an idea of where those averages are. So they are in the upper teens to low 20s. For some grade levels, that could actually be considered a little bit high based on educational research, and youngest kids need benefit from smaller class sizes. But none of these numbers really are overly alarming. And so I would say that we're adequately staffed. Where we need to reduce staff and have to increase class sizes, that could be a problem. And that would conclude my presentation, and I believe there'll be opportunity later for question and answer.
At this time, all registered voters who are U.S. citizens and who are at least 18 years of age, as well as those residents who are not registered voters but who own property assessed at $1,000 or more on the October 1st, 2021 grand list, will have the opportunity to speak or vote on the proposed town and school budgets. On the town general governmental budget, you must specify the line item you want to change, whether you want to increase it or decrease it, and what the proposed amount would be after the increase or decrease. The Board of Education budget, you can only increase or decrease the total number for the budget. You cannot make changes to individual line items on the Board of Education budget. At this time, I will ask for a vote on a limit of 5 minutes per person. When each person comes up to speak comes up to the mic to speak, and when you do come up, you will have to state your name and address clearly for the clerk to make a record of it. Can I get a motion to set the time limit for each person at 5 minutes? Motion has been made by Mr. Grandelski. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Cotula. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will have a 5-minute limit per person. At this time, anyone who would like to speak can come up to the microphone, state your name and address. And we are starting with just the town side.
Hi, my name is Dale Dauphiné, 204 Wright Road, Killingly. I'm also the Board of Assessment and Appeals Chairman. As we think about this vote, I would like everybody to understand, when we reassessed, I have a very elderly lady comes in, sits down, very concerned. She looks at us and she says, "How many Social Security checks do you want from me?" So understand These people are on a fixed income. Our elderly are getting crushed by our mill rate. And that's basically what I wanted to say. Keep that in mind. If you look and you want to increase our mill rate, think of the old lady that can't afford a house she's been in for 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on the town governmental budget?
Hi, good evening. Donna Brownwell from Bailey Hill up in East Killingly. I was dismayed when I saw the zero increase for the Board of Ed, but having heard the background, I understand it more. I'm just worried about what's going to happen next year if we don't put anything more into it this year. My main concern, though, is communication in the town. I've mentioned this before at other meetings. I was happy to see the goal for the town council was to improve communications and that they want to work on a long-term vision. And that's a great idea. I'd be happy to work on a committee to work on all that because I think we really, really need it. We've got pretty poor attendance here, and I'm not sure what kind of publicity was put out regarding this budget meeting. This is a big decision, big bucks, and we have very few people here. Some, I assume, are watching online or at home. But how was it publicized? How was this town meeting publicized? I saw it only a little tiny bit in a newspaper, and I happened to go by the electronic sign by the library that said there was a meeting tonight. But how do people know? I think we do a poor job of that. And if we complain that we don't have volunteers for our various commissions and all that kind of thing, we need to involve more people. They need to be more informed. We need to do a much better job on that. And so I would like to provide a motion to add $50,000. And I'm not sure under what category. The only thing I could see is community development, but I'm not sure if that's the right line item. There might be someplace better. To hire a special, a public relations consultant for a couple of reasons. One, to develop a new town logo. We're no longer a mill town. And to produce like a tagline, you know, what about find yourself here in Killingly or whatever. We need a marketing, to improve our marketing, improve our image. We've gotten some pretty bad press lately on through the Board of Ed. So, you know, we've gotten a few, well, I won't go there. And maybe do some focus groups in the community to really help with that, improving communications and our long-term vision for the town of Killingly. We have a lot to offer. I've been chair of conservation for 20 years, and you know, we promote our open spaces and our trails and our all that. In fact, go on killinglyconservation.org if you want to get out in the countryside. We have things going on. We're also going to have a booth at the Spring Fest in a couple weeks. So we really look to promote open space and getting people outside. We've developed some bus tours around on the back roads, which have gotten some good response. People saying, gee, I didn't know we had this in our town. We never get off the main roads. So anyhow, conservation is doing some good stuff. And we need to improve our communications and that long-term vision as to what do we want Killingly to be known for. So I'm going to reiterate my motion to add $50,000 to a line item, which I'm not sure what, Mary, you probably have some idea on where that could go, for a public relations consultant and all that type of thing.
So my recommendation for an area to add that to, as it's one of the council goals, would be to put it to professional services in the town council budget.
Okay, sounds good to me. You know more about that than I do. Professional, what was it, town services?
Professional services, contractual services support.
Okay.
Line item number 01-50208.
Okay, so I'm making a motion then to add $50,000 to that line item.
So right now, we have a motion to add $50,000 on line item 01-50208. Is there a second to that motion?
Name and address for the record. I'm sorry again?
So we have a motion, and we have a second. Is there any discussion regarding this?
There's somebody here.
Heidi Clifford, 103 River Street. Mrs. Colorio, are there any areas in the budget, such as the Economic Development Commission or something similar, that those items are already included in this budget?
Good question, Heidi. So we have not included a level of funding at this rate for hiring a public relations consulting service. However, the Economic Development Commission does have an economic development trust that may potentially be able to be activated for some sort of professional services if the town collectively wanted to go that route. But no, we do not have funding in this proposed budget to hire at that level, hire a public relations evaluation or coordinator for that. No, we do not have that within the budget. And just as a standard practice, whenever there is a motion on the floor to increase or change the budget in any way, we always like to give everyone the information as to potential mill rate impact. So an increase of $50,000 to the budget would potentially increase the budget by 0.04 mils.
Mr. Grandolski, I believe you had a question or comment?
Because Donna brings forward communication is a big issue, and that's one of the goals that the council set. And I've kind of been throwing that out a little bit here and there. I mean, driving out to the driveway here today, there is not a sign in front of the high school driveway saying this meeting is here tonight. And I'm kind of offended at that. Yes, it's nice to have the signpost over by Westcott Road, but I think we should have had something at the driveway today. We could have had the emergency sign that we have, the emergency management sign, that's a portable sign. That could have possibly been put up here. I kind of see very few people participating in this particular meeting. This is the meeting of the people. And it makes me depressed that the people do not want to participate. And if someone catches me somewhere and I bring this to their attention and say, well, you weren't there, they don't like when I say that to them. But everybody in town should be here. There should be 16,000 people here. A room wouldn't handle it, but whatever. So, no, I think that we got to do something with communication is lacking. And I think Donna's in the right ballpark.
Good evening, fellow citizens. My name is Paul Kozlowskis. I live in 22 Bailey Hill Village. I agree with this gentleman right here. I've lived in this town for many years. I've come to a lot of meetings. I've been for every vote, and it's the same thing every time. There's, I'll just say hypothetically, 8,000 people. There's about 157 that vote. You know? And then I hear people around town, oh, the taxes are too high, they're this or that. Did you go to vote? Oh, no, I was watching Dancing with the Stars. People are just not interested today. They're too busy with their own lives to even care what anybody does in this town, if that's the truth, too. You know, like this young lady here, $50,000. Maybe she has it in her bank account. But I don't. I'm one of the fixed incomes. I'm retired. Okay? I didn't save millions and millions and millions of dollars. I know prices increase. That's a fact of life. But for foolish things, I don't agree with. I don't do any of the community service type things in here. I make my own happiness going someplace. I do things. I could care less about town activities. If they cost me money, I say we don't have them. I'm a realist. Some people need these things. I don't. I came to this town because we had low taxes. It was a nice place to live. A lot of woods, open ground. I can make my own walking trails. I don't need to take a bus trip. I didn't move to this town to make friends. This isn't my hometown, really. This isn't where I grew up. I came here for the low taxes, nice environment, woods. I don't need a bus trip. That's going to cost the taxpayers money. You don't need no public. I found out about this meeting. I don't even have the internet. You know why? Because I don't need it. I can't afford it for one thing. That's why I got rid of my cable TV. So this young lady wants to have $50,000. Throw around $50,000 like it was nothing. You know, just like the golf. To me, hey, you go to school to learn. Sure, you have physical education. I played football, okay. But all these other extracurricular activities here, the kids really don't need them. They really don't, as far as I'm concerned. You got $4,000, you want to hire 2 more cops, $4,000 for a golf course, golf coach. Let the gentleman who's teaching the boys teach the girls. Give him $2,000 raise. You save $2,000. You know, like I said, I know things go up. But my gas is going up too. And just like Dale said, I'm feeling it now too. I didn't expect this big crunch in retirement. I'm not broke by any stretch of the means, but it's still hitting my wallet. When you got to fill up a half a tank of gas for $40. So me and my wife don't go hardly anywhere, so this is what we do to save money.
Excuse me, sir.
Okay, so, all right.
Can I just get officially your name and address for the record?
I think I gave that.
I apologize, we didn't manage to catch it right at the very beginning.
Oh, okay. 22 Bailey Hill Village, Danielson, Connecticut, Gillingley, 063239, Paul Kazlauskas.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yep.
Are there any more comments regarding the item that's on the floor?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say it's probably all our faults up here that we don't have a lot of people out here, or it's basically the people don't want to be involved, and like you said, most people don't care. Got to do this, got to do that. But we've been through how many town meetings? If there's something that we need to do, if we need to put a sign on the end, then that should be us to make sure at our next town meeting that we do have proper signage. I don't think we need to spend $50,000 because it's not going to be $50,000 because you have fringe benefits. If it's going to be a consultant, do we really need another consultant in town? I mean, we spend so much money in consulting fees. I think we have the personnel to take care of doing proper signage in our town hall. As for people showing up here, I think it is very sad that we have, 30 people to decide on our town budget. I think it's pretty sad, and I think when it comes time to vote, I think the low turnout, which is probably gonna happen, is very sad too. What can we do to fix that? Signage, anybody has any ideas, bring them up, and let's just act on it so we get the people out for the next vote. I think we need to be proactive in resolving our situations instead of just throwing money at it. We can't just keep throwing money, as many people here, are on fixed incomes. You can't keep spending the money. You have to be fiscally responsible.
Ms. Krandelsky?
I just want to talk in support of Donna Bromwell. She's a very bright woman. She's brilliant, and she has done so much for this community, more than anybody in this auditorium. And she's not a young lady that has $50,000 to throw around. And I hate hearing her insulted and talked to in that manner. So I just want to say, anything Donna wants to do for this town, it's the best for this town. She knows what she's talking about. And Killingly could use an image boost right now. Everything we're in the news for is pretty darn negative. Thank you.
Ida Barris, 1123 North Road, East Killingly. I just had to speak up and disagree because I don't think it's that people don't care. I came to the meeting today because my son told me, hey, did you know it's the meeting? I said, ooh, thanks for telling me. We used to have, and I don't know if this has become illegal or not, but there used to be a phone information through the schools, not telling anybody how to vote, but that there's a town meeting that's going to discuss the budget. And that ended several years ago. I don't know why. I don't know if it's illegal now or not. But I really do think that it's not that people don't care. Maybe some people don't care, but I think it's much more that people are not aware. So I think I agree with this decision that it would be worth it to find a way. And we haven't found a way. I don't think that the town council or the Board of Ed in the last several years has found a way. These budget meetings, in the past, these town meetings that discuss the budget have oftentimes been quite crowded, with lots of people disagreeing, but that's okay. People have shown up. And I do think that it's not so much that people don't care. I think it's that they don't know. So I support this idea. Thank you.
Just want to speak to quickly the reference that you made to the reverse call that used to go out by the school. So the town, my understanding, was challenged on that from the state elections about that reverse call, and we weren't allowed to do those any longer because of that process. So that was my understanding of what occurred and why those no longer happen, is because there was a challenge around that.
Thank you.
Monique Revelise, 14 Palmer Street, Danielson. I've been a resident of this town now for 18 years, and I've been in meetings here where, like, standing room, packed. And I've also been in meetings here where it's like this. I'm usually pretty aware of what's going on in my community. I didn't know that the meeting was tonight until yesterday. There used to be signage. I understand the robocalls came through the schools, and I know that that was a bone of contention. I remember when that happened, all of a sudden they couldn't do it. But I don't understand then why the robocalls can't be done by the town, why there can't be no robocalls at all to give information. See, this is the problem, because people need information, and without it, we can't make sound decisions. So if you can't robocall, then there needs to be another way, whether it's signs everywhere, whatever. We have a lot of families that live here now, and we have working parents, 2 working parent households, and they need to secure childcare. They're busy. Their days, by the time they get home, they're exhausted. They have to cook dinner and get everything ready. And if they find out that there's a meeting that night, what are the chances they can actually make it, especially with little ones? Not very good. And it needs to change. I don't know what the answer is, but since you are the elected officials, I would hope that you could come up with one. But I do agree that $50,000, if it gets us awareness out there, and I do also agree that a little bit of it is apathy, because I see what the voter turnout is, 10% or less some years, and that makes me sick. I mean, I try to explain to people that if you gave me $5,000 and then just told me to go spend it any way I want, and I went bought $5,000 worth of bubble gum, would you be pissed? Yeah, probably. That's the same thing as when you don't show up here. You're paying taxes, and this is your only time that you have to say how that money is spent. So if you don't mind just handing over money and saying, do whatever you want with it, then stay home. But that's really what it comes down to. We definitely need to do something to raise awareness in this community about how important voting is and exactly what are the correct times to make motions and change things, because it's not after the fact, and a lot of people don't understand that here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Heidi Clifford, 103 River Street. I know that there are a lot of people here saying that they didn't know about the meeting. I can say myself that I heard it broadcast on the radio every half hour today alone and prior to today. It's also on the WINY Facebook page. It is also on the Town of Killingly website. It is in the newspaper. Those are just the things I can think of off the top of my head. Plus it's, so I'm not sure how else to reach people other than we didn't obviously get the sign at the end of the road. But you can't make people come. You do advertise it in all of those locations. Mary has a speaking time on the talk show with the WINY all the time. She's there on Monday mornings. People could hear it that way. So I don't know if it's that the information wasn't put out there. There is also some due diligence on the part of being a taxpayer. The town has a website. It's right there on that front page. You can't miss it. People are always on Facebook. It's on the town's Facebook page. It was on the radio's Facebook page. It's been put out there. There is apathy. How do you engage that? I don't know. But I just wanted to mention that because a lot of the comments that were made imply that nothing has been done to advertise these meetings, and that's completely incorrect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Hello. So I'm not against some money for signs if we were to take it from someplace else so that we still keep a flat budget. Like, that's what's most important to me. We've heard that complaint over and over again about signs, and I do think we can improve on communication. I'm not sure about that procedure, but I wouldn't want to do it if it wasn't a flat budget. So if it comes from somewhere else, I don't feel against it, but I have to be flat. I feel like the logo thing is something separate, and I'm not sure about PR, that would be the best way, but I'm not against signs. We've talked about that before. So that's all I've got on that.
Thank you. Mr. Grandelsky.
Regarding the cost of the sign and the $50,000 item, and some people have talked about being on a fixed income, but if you go to the town council presentation, page C2, and if you look down under other state grants, and you look under Pequot-Mahegan Fund Grant, for the 2023 year, it's 0. So people have decided that this grant we should not pursue because of certain issues. But for someone who's on a fixed income or whatever, you should be discussing to your elected leaders that they should be taking advantage of every grant that's out there. And here's something that we could have an offset. We could take care of this situation, and it wouldn't be a burden to anyone. But it seems that our town leaders decided that this grant, we shouldn't pursue it because we have to hold dear to our traditions. I think we're missing the point. I would like to move the question.
The question has been moved for a vote. At this time, all those in favor of adding $50,000 to line item 0150208 say aye. All those opposed? Nay. All right. Because of how close it is, we are actually going to do a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. I got 18.
How many do you got?
18.
18.
All those opposed, raise your hand. Nays. The nays have it. It was 18-1. It was 18 yes, 24 no was the count. At this time, would anyone else like to speak to the general government budget? Last call for comments, amendments, motions to the general government budget.
Can I ask procedural? Is this for us too? Or is this just for those people? No.
It's for everyone. Right now, during an annual town meeting, everyone here, whether they're members of the public, whether there's voters, taxpayers, council members, or Board of Ed, we're all equals in the sense that we can all make motions, and we can all vote.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we take 20,000 from the roads and put it to signs for communication. Can I do that?
20,000 from road improvement.
I'm assuming that you're looking for the 20,000 to come out of the highway pavement management line item?
Just want to keep the mill rate flat. So,
So you're looking to take the money out of the pavement management line?
okay, does that work? Yeah.
Is that what you're requesting?
Help me out, yeah.
Okay, so you're looking to take, excuse me, it was $20,000 you're looking to take out of
Yeah, for communication signs.
pavement management
Yeah,
line?
and that will keep our thing flat? Would that keep the thing flat, Mary?
Okay. And so you would then be making a $2,000 increase, or excuse me, $20,000 increase to line number 0150208.
Okay, yeah, can we hear what the mill rate would be?
It would be what is in here, because it wouldn't be an increase. You would basically be taking 20,000 from one line item, moving it to
Good.
another.
Okay, yeah, that's it, sorry, guys, yep. Anybody want a second?
Motion has been seconded. I will open up for discussion regarding this item.
It wouldn't be only for signage, but that for Donna Brownwell at Bailey Hill. Not only signage, but other communications too, to broaden it to include other types of communications.
Would we have to have an amendment to the motion to do that? Okay.
I think we need to be clear on what that 20,000 is going to be spent on, like you were saying, like some kind of parameter where that money's going to be spent, whether it be signage, town image. Do we need that to be able to do that?
So when you add an item to the budget for the operating budget, ultimately, the town manager has authority over the expenditure, and any of those items would have to, so for the hiring of a consultant would be further approved by the town council. But ultimately, the town manager has the authority to expend within the appropriations of the annual operating budget of the town, of the general government side.
Thank you.
I would suggest that you addend your motion to, so it's clear what it's actually going to be used for.
So maybe communications committee?
It was just a suggestion, that's all. Because we're just taking a lump of money.
So a committee would have to be first developed, and the organizational structure of the committee approved by the town council, and then opened for seating of members by the town council onto the committee, and funding is then provided to the committee for operational purposes. If you're looking at hiring a consultant, then that's a completely different process in just hiring a consultant, and it would depend on the scope and parameters of what the town council is looking to have performed under that contract, which would be determined when we evaluate and put out an RFP for consulting services. Anything over 10,000 would require an RFP for consulting services.
And what would your typical RFP cost in general?
So we have to advertise the RFP. I mean, the actual RFP itself is not significant dollars, but it's probably would be under $300 to put out the RFP as far as, but more clearly, we would need to identify in advance from the council is exactly what the scope and parameters of that RFP would be before we could put anything out for proposals and bidding by consultants. We'd have to define what is the scope of work. And I have absolutely no idea if $20,000 is anything sufficient for that type of work. I've not evaluated any of that. I've not looked at the market. I've not looked at cost for performing those services at all at this point in time. So I have no idea if the number that's being presented right now is sufficient or insufficient. I have no idea.
It's probably not protocol, but maybe we, that is one of our goals, is communications. So I think that it would probably maybe be in our best interest to just make the better communications work. And if anybody has any great ideas, and let's not worry about the $50,000, let's just worry about actually doing it instead of trying to put a line item in or whatnot, whatever resources we need to some reasonable effect. I think that would probably be money better well spent.
Thank you. Now, just for a point of clarification, I've heard it mentioned many times about the sign at the end of the driveway. Do we already have existing signs that can be used by the town?
So yes, we do have existing signs. That electronic sign was actually deployed elsewhere for today. We are going to be having that sign out for the actual vote. It's slated to be out for the actual vote, and that's typically when we put that sign, when we deploy that sign. Again, that's a regional emergency management asset that is actually not owned by the town of Killingley, but owned by Region Demas 4, and has other times that it is called into service. So the town doesn't necessarily fully control the use of that sign. We do have it slated for that sign to be deployed for the actual meeting, the actual voting date, provided there is not an emergency situation that arises in which it has to be deployed in an emergency management standpoint. As far as other signage, the town has traditionally and will continue to put out signage directly after this meeting, reminding everyone that there is a vote next Tuesday and the voting locations. So that is also deployed and put out. Historically, we've not put out signage around town for this meeting. We can certainly look to do that in future years, to put out signage again for also the annual town meeting. One of the things that we try to do is make sure that we don't saturate people with signage where they no longer read the signs. There's signs all over the sides of the road every day, every intersection. At some point, drivers, it becomes a distraction. And also, people just stop reading them. So we want to make sure that we're getting pointed information out so people can absorb the information. So Heidi did indicate a lot of the areas in which this meeting specifically was advertised. And we do have the signs to put out around town on the side of the roadways, reminding everyone of the vote next Tuesday. But typically, that's the signage that we put out, is when there's an actual referendum vote. We put the signs out to remind people of the actual referendum vote.
Thank you for that clarification. Are there any further comments? The motion on the floor is to move, oh, excuse me, sorry, I missed it.
Oh, that's okay. Check. Hi. Joe Zornato, 32 Foster Street. I wonder if the lack of turnout is a sort of a sign of your success. We care about flat mill rates. We seem to care about defunding public education. We seem to care about not accepting Native American grant money. The people in the town that voted you in have gotten everything they want. What do you want them coming here for? To fight with you? What would they be fighting for? A lower mill rate? So I don't quite understand really what the debate is. This is what kind of the majority rule looks like. This is a dream team for this town. I'm not sure what you're kind of hoping that the people will come here to do, other than maybe Again, lower the mill rate, spend less money on town business, less money on public education. My children are all grown up, they're done with school here. I still feel like it's my human obligation to help those who come after me. You know, what you really need to work on is the vision. That's the number one thing, that's the number one takeaway. What the hell do we stand for? Lower mill rate. That's what we stand for. I mean, in my little bit of foray into politics, it's like, that's what people want to hear, knock on their door. You're going to lower the mill rate. You're not going to raise the mill rate. Now, I understand the fixed income argument. Taxes aren't fair. That's the other piece. Yeah, what do we stand for? And so, $20,000, $50,000, I think it's more like $500 million we're going to need to change people's minds about this town. So, yeah, don't waste that money. Especially if you don't know what we stand for. We're going to get messaging from a consultant telling us what we stand for, and then the town, and then you are going to say, no, that's not what we stand for. So you all have to figure out, what do you stand for now that you're triumphantly running the show with your values in place? What does it all add up to? Kind of an empty room. Thank you.
I'll go. I think I could amend my thing to say a committee, that the money would be there for a committee. And then when we run it through the town council, what we would do with that money. Does that clarify, Andy?
You would have to modify your motion because the
Yeah, can I
money for a
modify
committee
the
would not
motion?
go into that line item, it would go into another line item.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Well, I'd like to try to make it into a real motion that kind of goes under what Andy said with a committee, the money would be there, we'd discuss, this is one of our main goals, and then town council would decide as a whole how we use it. I'd be on that committee. Sorry. New.
So I have a motion to amend the original motion that was on the floor. And the amendment would be to move the $20,000 from the highway pavement into line item 0950297, which is for temporary commissions.
Thank you. If there's a second.
Is there a second?
So we need your name and address. Has to be the same, I'm sorry, it has to be the same person that originally seconded the motion. Do you want to second the amendment to the motion? It was Donna Bronwell.
So now I will ask for discussion regarding the amendment to the original motion. Would anyone like to make comment to the amendment? Seeing none, at this time, we are going to vote. Oh, were you waiting to comment on the amendment? Okay.
Janelle Preventure, 55 Lads Lane, Dayville. And just clarifying, is this so that I can just discuss my thoughts on what she just proposed? But prior to anyone voting about a committee, a subcommittee, using those funds for a subcommittee to more than just signage, as you had said?
Right, so right now, they're just voting on whether or not to amend or change the motion, not necessarily on whether or not to actually approve the change of the money. So it's just changing from putting it under the town council's budget to put it under temporary commissions. That's what the vote is right now.
So I should sit down now then, I guess.
Last call for comments on the amendment to the original motion. The amendment is to move the money from the Highway Pavement Fund for a amount of $20,000 into line item 09-50297 in the amount of $20,000, and that line item is for temporary commissions.
So the amendment portion is only changing from the town council's budget to temporary commission's budget. That's the amendment to the original motion.
Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment to the original motion, say aye. Opposed? Nay. We're going to do hands again. All those in favor, raise your hands. 22. What did you have?
You got, how many? 23, that's what I got, was 23.
Okay. All those opposed, raise your hands. 25?
25. I got Steve in the booth. Yep, 25.
So the motion fails. So we are back to the original motion, which was to move the money from the Highway Pavement Fund to line item 01-50208. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call for a vote on this, and just to simplify it, we're going to do a hand vote. Speed up the process a little. All those in favor of moving $20,000 from the Highway Pavement Fund into line item 01-50208, which is the Town Council Contractual Services line item. Raise your hands if you're in favor of it. So that's 20 in favor. All those opposed, raise your hand. Oh, 30. Okay, 32.
32, I got 32. I got 32. I got 32. I got 32.
So that's 32 opposed. Motion fails. Is there anyone else who would like to make?
It's 14 Palmer Street, Danielson. I have a question. Ed Grandelski had brought up, we're not seeking money, I guess. We're not seeking a grant or something from a Native American tribe. Why is that? Why do we decide that we don't need that money? Can anybody answer that?
The Mohegan Pequot grant that the town had been receiving, the state passed legislation in the previous legislation cycle, so last year, that any town that has Native American imagery in any of their mascots is ineligible unless they are in the process of changing that imagery. The town had to file paperwork to notify the state of any modification. That is a Board of Education matter, and so that item has not been further reviewed, so the town would be ineligible. So this budget is reflecting the town would be ineligible to receive those grant funds because we do maintain a Native American imagery.
And that was $95,000 we lost?
Almost 94,000, yes, it's 94,000 and change.
Nice job, guys.
Is there anyone else who would like to make comments or amendments to the general government budget? You have to come up to the microphone. Seeing none, we will now move on to the Board of Education budget. If anyone would like to make comments, amendments, motions for the total number of the Board of Education budget, come forward, state your name and address.
Good evening. Nancy Grindelsky, 877 Upper Maple Street, Dayville. I would like to make a motion to increase the Board of Ed budget by $615,199. This amount was cut from the school budget by the town council. The town council, as we all know, only increased the school budget by $1 over last year. I mean, just inflation and the fact that you voted down our school-based health clinic, where are we going to get the money to support the mental health needs of our students if you're only increasing the budget by $1? And I think it is pretty irresponsible to give up $94,000 to keep our mascot. So, I don't know. I don't really understand a lot of how you guys think, because 1 minute $50,000 is too much, but $94,000 to give up is not. So please put the money back in our school budget. Our kids need it. Our community needs it. Thank you. Okay, and that was a motion. Thank you.
Hi, Monique Revelies.
Wait, just get a second.
14.
Are you seconding the motion?
I'm seconding the motion, absolutely.
Go ahead.
I know that a lot of people hear little bits and pieces, especially the voting public here, about how, well, if the Board of Ed returns the surplus of money, that means that they overestimated the year before. And I know that Mr. Angeli did touch on some of those issues, like why we had the surplus. However, there are other reasons as well that I didn't really hear mentioned. I know one of them was, of course, the pandemic, so we didn't have sports, we didn't have a prom, we didn't have all those year-end events, field trips, all those things were gone. So of course that money is not going to be used. But we also lost over 50 staff members. So a lot of them were veteran employees, which means that they were at the higher end of our salary scale. Now that's not to say our salary scale is extremely low in Killingly. Right now, we have over 70 openings across Killenly Public Schools. I saw it tonight on, I did some homework before I left, and I went on different job sites like CT Reap, and that's where educator postings are. We can't fill what we have. So right now, our salaries aren't being paid out because we are so short-staffed. We can't even find people. And I worked for Killenly Public Schools for 3 years, and I loved my job. But I left because I couldn't work here anymore. I didn't want to leave, but I had to. And I totally understand why all those other people left too. And the fact that Killenly Public Schools comes to the town and says, this is what we need, you know, they're not asking you for a favor. It's not a gift. It's something that they need. The town should be working in conjunction with the schools to have the best outcome for our community. And giving them $1 extra, I don't even understand why that was proposed. Why wasn't it zero? What was with the dollar? $1? The town shouldn't have to depend upon an extra fund because they may not have it in their budget. They should have it in their budget. And seeing as how they've always returned the surplus money to you, there shouldn't be a trust issue there. They've always given it back. I know by law it's required anyway. They have not tried to hide it. They've given the money back. In the last 2 years, nothing has been normal within our schools. All the money that they would normally spend hasn't been spent because of the pandemic. And people, a mass exodus. For those people at home watching or people here that aren't aware, there was a mass exodus of employees from Killenly Public Schools. That's why they have all that surplus money. And right now, we can't even hire people. We can't get people to want to work for us. Not only are we at the lower end of the pay scale, which presents a problem within itself, but now with all the negative press that we're getting for decisions that are not benefiting the students, people don't even want to be associated right now with Killenly Public Schools. And it's sad, and it breaks my heart. I don't have children in the school system anymore. She's a senior, and I don't work for them anymore. So right now, I don't really even have a dog in the fight anymore. But it's what's right, and it's what's fair. And they should not be asked to figure out how they're going to come up with $615,000. Do I agree with their decisions? Absolutely not. They didn't care about, some people might go, well, they didn't care about the $94,000. They don't care about the health center. It doesn't matter. They still need that money to run a school system, to have the best outcome for our students, because that's supposed to be their #1 charge, to make decisions, informed decisions, not based on political opinions or ideals, informed decisions with the facts in front of them. And they're not going to be able to make those good decisions with a $615,000 deficit. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Norm Ferrin, Squaw Rock Road. I'm also the chair of the Board of Ed, and I appreciate the support from the audience. There's 2 ways to look at this budget, and we initially approved the 1.37% increase. Now, do we really need that increase? I'm not so sure that we do, because, I mean, as long as we're allowed to use the non-lapsing account to cover any deficit that we might have, we have $2 million in that account. So the $615,000 is not going to really stop us from meeting our budget obligations if we had a maximum budget obligation. in a normal year, we were able to hire all the staff that's contained in the budget, which, you know, it's doubtful that that's going to happen. I also want to address a couple comments that were made about, you know, Killingly's pay scale being incredibly low. That's not true. And I can prove that it's not true. If you look at, all that information is posted for the surrounding towns, and we're competitive with Plainfield, Putnam, and the surrounding towns. There is no giant deficit in the Killingly schools. Now, you can say there's a small discrepancy between some of the towns, but there is not some kind of giant pay scale drop in this town. That's a fallacy. And as far as the budget only increasing by $1, I think we can live with that. Like I said, as long as we're allowed to dip into that non-lapsing account to at least the amount of $615,000 if we wind up needing it. I mean, we're returning very large surpluses to the town, so why keep increasing our budget and then give $2 million back to the town at the end of the year if that's what's going to happen? So nobody has a crystal ball to predict exactly how much of a budget we're going to need this year, but we have the cushion in the non-lapsing fund, and I'm sure this board will approve, you know, allowing Mr. Angeli to dip into that if it's needed. We're not going to wind up not fulfilling our obligations or laying off any staff or anything like that. We'll be able to meet our obligations through that non-lapsing account, and also savings in the insurance that we expect will come forward this year. So there's, I think we can approach the budget this way. Like I said, as long as we do those things.
So am I?
Excuse me 1 minute.
I'm sorry.
He was first, and you've already spoken.
Okay, good evening. Thank you all for your service to the town. I do appreciate it, even if it might not always sound like it. You know, we're increasing the town budget $1,300,000-something, and Mrs. Colario gave a very nice presentation on the rationale for that. But we kind of looked at that and said that was a priority. That made sense. We're going to spend some more money there. We dodged the bullet on KMS. We were almost on the hook for an extra $4 million, I believe. And I don't envy any of you. I think Mr. Diamant has kind of pulled the wool over a lot of people's eyes. But taxpayers were almost on the hook for another $4 million for that, I believe. And correct me if I'm wrong on the figure, but I think we have a variance now, so I believe that's resolved. $94,000 that was spoken of. I know people are passionate about that issue. That's every year. That's not just this year, $94,000. $94,000 every year, you know. And that's the same kind of money as the other money we spent. There's no difference there, you know. The clinic, we're offered a free clinic. Now, I understand, again, people are passionate about that issue, but we looked at the free clinic offered to us, and many of the people said, no, we want to go another way. Now, to stay on the right side of the State Board of Ed, there were other good faith proposals offered, but very likely that's going to involve us dipping into taxpayers' resources instead of going with the free option. Now, that's a priority of the, you know, of people, and I understand that. I'm not trying to pick a fight about that. I'm just saying. So, and then we look at Westfield. Now, the date for the vote on Westfield, the new recreation center, was set not when everybody was voting, but for, was it 2 weeks after? And I'm sure there was a rationale there, but that's a $27 million project, and that we're spending on recreation. Now, I'm not even taking issue with people's perceptions on whether we should do that or not. I'm saying, where was everybody screaming bloody murder about the budget when we were talking about voting on a $27 million project, and why didn't we do that when everybody was voting? So my point here is not to nitpick everybody on these issues. I have different priorities, people have different priorities. The point is that we are spending money on lots of things. And it's very clear, based on the last budget meeting and this meeting, these other priorities, we're okay spending the money very often, or maybe messing up and we spend some money, and everybody messes up sometimes, but then when it comes to the education budget, that's not a priority. Now, when we look at $1, I know we've been giving back money, but $1, if we have normal inflation, 2%, that's actually a 2% cut to the budget, because everything else in the economy costs more. Now, you guys might have more faith in the federal government and the Federal Reserve to get inflation under control than I do, but it looks to me like we're going to be looking at, we're at what, 6 or 7% inflation? So we're really talking about a 6 or 7% cut. Maybe the non-lapsing account will cover that, maybe it won't, especially if we start hiring people. So we need to be prepared for that. And maybe it doesn't bite us this year, but next year we could get a real kick in the pants on that. So, and when we're budgeting, Murphy's Law, you budget a little extra. And my proposal, I don't know if there's any way to do this, if there's extra money, we're worried about people on fixed income, is there any way to return that to people on fixed income, people over 60 in this town? I'd be in favor of that. We're funding the schools adequately, people on fixed income get that extra money back. I don't know if that's feasible or that's pipe dream, but so why should we be, when we want to attract people to this town, whether it's students, whether it's teachers, whether it's staff people, whether it's businesses who look for good schools, if we're at 0% budget, that doesn't attract anybody. And I know a lot of people who live in neighboring towns and not in Killingly for the very reason that they know we don't value our schools as much as we should. So I would, I speak in favor of this, Ms. Grandelski's proposal, obviously. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Clorio, if you could just give us some clarification. My understanding is being able to return taxes surplus to taxpayers is not something we could do legally. And then also the other comment he made regarding having the Westfield Ave project vote on the same day as a municipal budget, municipal elections, that was something we couldn't do as well.
Right, so as far as returning funds as a refund back to taxpayers, it would have to be across all taxpayers, not one specific taxpayer group. But it would be, and that's usually done by the town council activating the use of fund balance in the subsequent years to thereby reduce and offset future years. And so that's typical, that's what the council has done that to some extent within this budget with regards to the pavement management. And they've done it in prior budgets. They did it in the current budget that we're in right now, and they activated fund balance. But the council activates the use of fund balance during the budgetary process. But that would be the way of refunding, if you will, because anything that is collected that is not expended within the year according to the budgets, it drops to fund balance. That's the proper mechanism for it. And then it's the council that would activate that component in future budgetary years. You're welcome.
It's okay. Yeah, so I have a couple points. The first thing I would like to remind the community is that some of the same individuals who are criticizing the town council and the Board of Education for forgoing this specific grant are some of the same individuals that remind the town council and the Board of Ed time and time again that we should not and cannot rely on grants to fund our town and our schools. So on one hand, I understand that you would like this grant, but on the other hand, you remind us that we should not rely on grants. So I would like to remind the town that whether we forgo certain grants or not, or we seek certain grants or not, grants are not guaranteed to us. Regardless of decisions we make, grants aren't always there and they're not always guaranteed. I would also like to say that I agree that everything that needs to be funded in our education system should. I don't support cutting any positions right now, and I don't support cutting funding to the education budget. But after hearing from Mr. Angeli and town council members, proposing the idea that we have $2 million in our non-lapsing account that we can dip into in order to fund our school district. I think that would be a smart way to go because right now everyone's struggling, and I don't think the answer right now is to raise taxes. If we are able to fund the school sufficiently without raising taxes by dipping into our $2 million non-lapsing account, I think that's the way we should go. Thank you.
Janelle Preventure, 55 Lads Lane. Tears, pounding heart, and shaking included. And if anybody can translate for me through any emotions, I promise you I can't turn it off. I'm a second grade teacher, and I've taught for 10 years. I went to school in Killingly. I teach in the same building that I'm employed at. And to say that something is sufficient funding based on like a surplus, and again, why risk that? We have such a need in our schools, and to say that you might not have to cut positions. I've had 2 back-to-back years, my second and third year teaching, where I was possibly shifted to other positions, where I would need to move to different grade levels. And I finally was put on second grade. I've stayed there and I've been fine, but it's more than just hoping we can maintain positions. We've also discussed what's being done to keep teachers here in Killingly. What can we do about advertising or whatever? It's about our reputation. It's about our image. I just don't understand if there were any of these people who are against the increase who were side by side next to me or in other classrooms and could see the student need. You can't blame the parents, you can't blame the families. Maybe we can get to some remediation points at some point, but that's not the point here. The point is right now we don't have that. What we have an opportunity to show teacher support, keep them here so that they don't think about leaving the profession or having to go somewhere else from their hometown. I've come to know our superintendent, and although I don't pretend to understand the finances and the money, that's kind of what my husband does. We balance each other out well. He's the finance guy, but I've learned to trust other people when it's their specific area, and I do trust Mr. Angeli's initial proposal. If we just keep saying no to all of these line items, I don't really understand what we're investing in for our community. I just want better for my children. I have a second grader. I have an up-and-coming kindergartner. And they have loved and adored their teachers. I have a teacher, actually I'm going to be calling tomorrow because I had a student who is has high participation. And out of nowhere, he starts crying and says, I can't read. And his kindergarten and first grade teachers offered to be in contact with him. And some of my fears are that these great teachers are going to be gone. We're going to lose our veteran teachers, the continuity of learning from professional development that I've had, reading and writing workshops, shared readings, all of these things that I've learned, or from mentor teachers. Those people are gone. So you have to hope that someone's kind of carrying the torch on. And we're not going to do that if we have a high turnover rate. So the numbers may speak a certain way on a table, but it's how it's being perceived. And that means everything. So please keep that in mind. And I don't know what else to say. Just please don't make it seem as if it's just easy and very feasible. Because I promise you, it is not. It is very challenging to try and find staffing, and then you have those end-of-year goldenrod forms for special education and more of them coming.
You have 1 minute left.
Let's see, do I know any songs? No, I won't this time. Just please, if I have my 1 minute left, I might just ask that people take at least 10 seconds of reflection. I try to use my own discernment at times to not just be totally emotionally driven, which is difficult. But if you could just take a moment to pause. And even if this softens the hearts of 1 or 2 people, and it might flip their vote, because I don't think I represent a minority.
Your 5 minutes is up.
Muchas gracias.
De nada.
Ida Barris, 1123 North Road, East Killingley. You know, I really can't follow that act because I think that the teachers do an awfully great job under incredibly difficult circumstances. I'm a retired teacher myself. I taught in Killingley for like 1 million years. And when I look at this Board of Education goals, which I imagine are also accepted by the town council, goal number 2, talent development. KPS will recruit and retain highly effective professionals who are collaborative, respectful, supportive, reflective critical thinkers with an ability to connect to our student body. I don't think this budget allows the Board of Education to meet that goal. We have really talented, wonderful teachers, and they're burnt out because there's too few of them. I think somebody said 70 people left Killingley. They're probably not planning on coming back. So in order to recruit and retain highly effective professionals who are collaborative, respectful, supportive, reflective, critical thinkers with an ability to connect to our student body, they have to want to come to Killingley. Thank you.
My name's Joe Fodor, 4 Birchwood Drive, Dayville, Connecticut. I have a question about the non-lapsing account. It doesn't make sense to me that that could be a vehicle to be used in planning for the superintendent. He would have to run at a deficit, and I don't think that's what you wanted. So he'd have to run at a deficit in order to pick up your non-lapsing accounts. That just doesn't make sense to me. How do you do that? You're going to cut $600,000 out of the budget, so you're going to run at a lower budget. So how can you get the $615,000 back? Just doesn't make sense.
Mr. In, can I comment? Mr. Just one. Go ahead. Me? Okay. Susan Lannon, Dayville, Connecticut, Board of Ed. As it was previously mentioned, goal number 2 of the Killingley Public School is that we will recruit and retain highly effective professionals. My opinion is that even with the potential use of other funds, giving the Board of Education a $1 increase isn't an increase as much as it's being received as a message. A part of our goal number 2, to attract and recruit highly effective professionals, should be a vision and a best practice for us. It should be something that we long to achieve, and we should anticipate to hire and retain at a full staffing level at all times. We can plan to fulfill and sustain all positions, all of our contractual obligations, and work to succeed in that manner. Now, as you may be aware, this week is Teacher Appreciation Week, and today our students began to flood our educators and our school staff with handwritten cards, flowers, candy, and gifts. But appreciation is more than that, and it's more than 1 week. It's a dedication. It's a commitment, and it's an honor to their dedication, their craft, and their love for our children and our future. Let us honor our students. Let us, as the Board of Education, appreciate our staff, and let us recognize that that appreciation is a commitment. We need to be supported to protect our educators, our staff, and our leadership. Our children are watching. Thank you.
Heidi Clifford, 103 River Street. In reference to the non-lapsing account, putting aside the COVID year for the 2021, that's understandable that not all of the funds were able to be expended. However, since the 2014-15 year, the Board of Ed has returned money to the town. In 14-15, there was a small surplus of 0.19%. In 15-16, a 1.08%. In 16-17, a 2.21% return. 17-18, they returned 1.62%. In 18-19, they returned 1.75%. And in 19-20, most of the year we were in school, they returned 2.8%. So I don't think that we're underfunding the Board of Ed budget. When they're returning money to the town every single year, sometimes they have a surplus of 1.2 million, another year 765,000, another year 698,000, another year 500,000, another year 438,000, and so on. This information is available to everyone. You just need to look it up. It's not being underfunded. It's being overfunded. Thank you.
Joe Fodor here again, 4 Birchwood Drive, Dayville. I'm confused about this non-lapsing account, and when is it available to the superintendent of the school so he can make plans to do something with it? Is there money now available? Could you use that for the $600,000 shortfall?
Mary Colorio, Town Manager. I can provide a little background with the non-lapsing, I'm sure, as well as the superintendent could. So the fund is available to the Board of Education for use for educational purposes throughout the entire fiscal year. So they have availability to use that and plan on the use of that throughout the year. And the superintendent and I have, kind of worked through what that dependent on what that proposal looks like from the Board of Education, but they do have access to that throughout the year.
So he doesn't have to wait until the end of the year.
Correct.
He can make plans to include the use of that money.
Correct.
Jennifer Kiku, Langford McDonald, 548 Valley Road. I have a small comment about the proposed possibility of how you would make up for this budget shortfall that Mr. Angeli presented. One of the thoughts was cutting health care for all of the town employees. And I'm looking at the budget for the town and how you're getting 5% of the budget revenue from the Lake Road generating agreement. And a lot of you were in support of wanting to put in a second power plant in our town. And I don't understand how you can be putting the health of our town employees and school people to want to possibly defund that by reducing the healthcare costs, while everybody in our town is paying with our health for having these power plants in our town.
Superintendent wants to take that.
I could address some of that. So I want to be clear when I mentioned that we would look for ways to find reductions in the health benefits. That wouldn't mean that we would be decreasing the health benefits that we provide to our employees, either on the town side or on the Board of Ed side. But we have a partnership between the Board of Ed and the town on how health insurance and dental insurance are funded. So we have a self-funded account. We pay an insurance company, currently Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, to manage the account, but it's self-funded, and so the town government puts money into that account, the Board of Education puts money into that account, and our employees, when they pay their premium share, also put money into that account. So that account either runs low if we have a lot of people that have health claims, or the fund balance in that account can accumulate if we have some years where the claims are lower. So we're looking at that account now to see how healthy it is and whether or not there could be an ability to decrease the amount that will be contributed to that fund this year. There would be no change in the benefits that we provide to employees, either on the Board of Ed side or the town side. You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, Tammy Wakefield, North Street, I'd like to move the question.
Move the question.
All right, at this time, we'll move the question. And the question was to increase the Board of Education budget by $615,199, which would bring it to a total of would bring it to a total of $45,644,977. All those in favor? No. All those in favor, raise your hand. I got 16.
We got 16.
Did you get Steve up top there? Yeah, we got Steve. Yep. We got 16 for. All those opposed, raise your hand. I got 37.
I got 37.
37.
That's what you got was 37.
37 against. The motion fails. Is there anyone else who would like to make motions or comments regarding the Board of Education budget?
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Grandelsky made the motion, seconded by Mr. Cottula. All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? This meeting is adjourned.